You want me to start?
I got it. What's good, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of AKP Sports Talk. It's been a couple of weeks. Life got a little hectic, but we're back and better than ever. We got the NBA starting up in a couple of weeks. We got the NFL in full force right now, heading into Week 5. And then we got the MLB playoffs starting on Friday. So we got a little bit of everything. And then for those into NHL, that's coming up as well. So pretty much every main sport is either on the horizon or right in the middle of action. Korea, how are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good. You said it pretty much. You explained it all. Look, we have NFL continuing. Same for college football. We are reaching the end of the MLB season. Today's game 162 day, so every team is playing pretty much right about now. First pitch is literally slated for about now. So all 30 teams in the MLB are facing each other right now for game 162. You mentioned NBA is starting up slowly. Preseason just started. Tip-offs in a couple weeks. That's also really exciting. Some new places, some new faces, and new teams. And you mentioned hockey, preseason action going on right now as well. That season starting up pretty soon. So October is always the best month for just all sports because you have pretty much the four major sports all playing at the same time, and it's fun. It's fun to watch so many games, so many matches, so many things to watch. Now, with the postseason coming up right around the corner, starting on Friday, what better chance to see some a new playoff system work out in its first year, not starting on Friday.
Yeah, so let's just that'll be the focus today is the MLB playoffs. So we'll just dive right into it. So we have the new format with the top two seeds in each league getting a bye. So we had the Astros as the 1 seed and the Yankees as the 2 seed in the AL, and then the Dodgers getting the 1 seed in the NL and the Braves getting the 2 seed in the NL. So those four teams all get a bye in this opening round. So then we have the lowest division winner facing the lowest wild card in each league, and then the top two wild cards facing off. So we'll just kind of get right into that, and we might as well start off with our team in their series, the Mariners, heading up to Toronto. And it will be a best of 3 series, all in the higher seed, so all in Toronto for this series. We got some game ones officially, as we expected, Luis Castillo against Alek Manoah. And then game 2, it's looking like it's probably going to be Robbie Ray versus Kevin Gosman. So Robbie Ray having his Cy Young Award year last year and his replacement facing off against each other. We remember earlier, right before the All-Star break, when the Mariners had their long winning streak, they swept Toronto in a 4-game series in Seattle. And then earlier in the year, I believe the Blue Jays took 2 of 3 in Toronto in the previous series. A lot of the young talent on both teams. Obviously, Julio Rodriguez, Vlad Guerrero, Bo Bichette. Still got George Springer, Mitch Haniger, Ty France. A lot of good talent on both sides. Korea, what's kind of your feeling heading into the series in terms of the Mariners' chances and just kind of how these two teams kind of match up?
Look, obviously, you can make this very homey for us Mariner fans, and obviously, the Mariners are going to win in 2 and all that stuff. But the Toronto Blue Jays are actually a very respectable team. A lot of us, including myself, had them as one of the ALCS favorites this year. And the reason is because of how dominant their lineup is. And we've seen that throughout the regular season. The Toronto Blue Jays right now are playing some of their best baseball of the season. That lineup from top to bottom, pretty complete. Vladimir Guerrero Jr., George Springer's back healthy. Alejandro Kirk, one of the best catchers in baseball in terms of hitting. Matt Chapman, Gurriel, just all the names in that starting lineup is very, very that's why they've won so many games, because of their offense. And then you look at the pitching staff, and that's where all the bigger questions come up. But, Alek Manoah having a career year for him, and Jose Barrios dominant at home in Toronto, and Kevin Gosman, up and down, but, still pretty dominant. And that's their starting rotation, and that's really good. They even have Ross Stripling, and then, who has been very good this year as well. And then you look at the bullpen, and the bullpen has had some questions, but Jordan Romano has been their ace-out closer throughout the whole season. And, you look at Toronto and see, okay, well, Toronto has one of the best offenses. But what does Seattle have to do? And all Seattle really has to do is just focus on their offense, because Seattle's offense has been one of the things that has been plaguing them all season in terms of serious production, in terms of like World Series contending production. Because right now, the offense obviously is one of the big struggles for this Mariners organization, alongside many, many, many unfortunate injuries late down the stretch heading into the final game today. So many guys being called up and sent down and moved to the IL. It's been crazy, but I still think this Mariners team has a decent chance. Look, the pitching is obviously one of the bigger things that the Mariners have leaned on all season. Now, and one of the bigger notes is that the Jays never faced Luis Castillo when he was a Mariner. Obviously, that series happened before the trade deadline happened, and so now they get to experience Luis Castillo for the first time. So I feel like that gives the Mariners a little bit of an advantage. Obviously, the Blue Jays have never really faced, I believe, Luis Castillo. I don't think this year, or when he was even with Cincinnati. But you have Luis Castillo going game one, and then obviously Robbie Ray in game two. And obviously it's more than just a game for him. Obviously he played for Toronto last year, a little bit of a revenge game for him. And he knows that atmosphere. He knows how loud Toronto can get. He played in that stadium. So I feel like, the Mariners have a decent chance. And then I've heard that game three, if it goes there, it's potentially Gilbert versus Barrios. And, I feel like if it does get to a game three, then the Mariners have an even better chance, because, Barrios was so up and down. And, and Gilbert, he's been doing amazing things this year, especially in that clinching game, 8 innings against the Oakland Athletics. So for this first series, obviously I want to say that I'm going to say the Mariners. I'm never gonna not say the Mariners in this situation. But the Blue Jays are definitely a big threat. And if we were lose, I would lose to the Blue Jays. I feel like it would be respectable, because the Blue Jays definitely have one of the better lineups, and they're definitely a deep threat in the ALDS. But obviously they have to go against Houston, who is all around one of the best teams in baseball. So still definitely a hard route for the Mariners to potentially get to the ALCS. They have to not only beat Toronto on the road, but beat Houston in 3 out of 5, which they haven't even beat Houston in the last the last time they played them obviously was so long ago. But Houston already won the season series way back then. So but yeah, going back to this series, I really like. I'm obviously going to take the Mariners, but the Blue Jays definitely have one of the best lineups in the American League playoff right now, and it's definitely going to be a really, really fun series. Atmosphere is going to be electric, because obviously it's at the Rogers Center, and that stadium can get filled up. But one thing I really hope personally is that Mariner fans do make the travel. I mean, yeah, we got to get our passports and everything, but
there's a lot of Mariners fans also in some of Canada that's closer to Seattle as well. So we'll see if they make the travel to Toronto.
I've seen a lot of Western Canadian Seattle Mariner fans really emerging as of recently now, with the official statement that we're playing Toronto, so they can also make the cross-country trip to Toronto as well. So, I hope that Mariner fans really do make a presence, because, like I said, back in that Toronto series at home when we swept them, Toronto made their name known in Seattle. They had so many fans going around T-Mobile Park. I just want the same thing in Toronto. Obviously, it's going to be hard, which is a playoff atmosphere, but I still think this Mariners team definitely has a good chance to win this opening series, and it definitely be a lot of fun to see the Mariners in a playoff series for the first time since 2001. And yeah, Toronto definitely has the weapons, but I think the Mariners just have that little glimpse of magic. We talk about it, Mariner magic, chaos ball, all that fun stuff. I feel like that Mariners luck is just going to keep going into the first round of the postseason.
Yeah, I mean, Toronto's the betting favorite, as most would expect. The home team's normally going to be the favorite, in most series. But I mean, I would give the Mariners the edge for starting pitching and bullpen. And so, like you said, it's going to come down to if the offense can just do enough to support, the pitchers. Luis Castillo has been, the last month or so, he ended the regular season on the high note, but the few starts before that, he was not quite his, elite self. But hopefully the last start that he had where he pitched well can give him some momentum. Like you said, when the Blue Jays faced the Mariners earlier, they didn't have Castillo, obviously, because that was before the trade deadline. And then Robbie Ray wasn't able to make the trip to Canada earlier because of the restrictions. He faced Toronto in Seattle, where he pitched well. But, like you said, he pitched in Toronto last year, so he knows the atmosphere. But still pitching as the opposing team's starting pitcher is going to be a little bit different. So hopefully the nerves don't get too much is the hope. He's been super, up and down for the most part this year, but it seems like he has stepped up at times against better teams, and it seems like against worse teams, he kind of pitches down the competition at times. So, but like you said, if it does go to Game 3, I like to see the Mariners' chances with Gilbert on the mound as well. I kind of want to see Gilbert go Game 2 personally, but hopefully Ray can step up in Game 2 himself. So now we can move on to the other AL wildcard series with Cleveland hosting Tampa Bay. Cleveland's AL Central winner. They're kind of similar to the Mariners in that their pitching kind of carried them most of the way. Their offense kind of showed up at times, but they were a little bit inconsistent. Led by rookie Steven Kwan, Jose Ramirez, a number of players on that offense, and Tampa Bay just always seems to find a way to make things happen, even when they don't have the most talented team. They did get Glasnow back like a week or two ago, so that will help. They'll be led by McClanahan in Game 1. Something happened.
Julio leadoff homer. What can you say about this Mariner team? Julio leadoff homer. But you were saying?
But yeah, I mean, Tampa Bay, I think you said, Curry, earlier that Tampa Bay kind of limping into the playoffs. I think you said winning like 2 of their last 10, I want to say. Cleveland, been up and down at times throughout the season, but they've kind of been playing well. What's kind of your expectation for this series?
Yeah, so this one's interesting for me because it's literally the spectrum of 2 teams. You have Tampa Bay. They've won 2 out of the last 10. They've literally limped into the playoffs with a lot of help from Baltimore. And, the earlier in this playoff chase, it was, the Orioles and the Blue Jays and the Mariners and the Rays. Oh, look at that back-to-back homer. You just love to see something like this. Yeah. But anyways, yeah, the Rays, they've definitely been a team that was, kind of up there as well. But, they've only won 2 out of their, I believe, 2 out of their last 10 games. Yeah, 2-8 in their last 10. I mean, that's just not a good recipe for going into the postseason, losing so many games. But the Rays definitely do have the talent you mentioned. They have McClanahan, who's an AL Cy Young favorite. They have, they've just got back Glasnow. They still have Corey Kluber. They have a pretty decent offense. Yandy Diaz. We'll see how Randy Arozarena is in the postseason because this year he's been absolutely horrible and a really big letdown for Tampa Bay, after – his 2020 ascension into the after they made it to the World Series in that season. And then you have Cleveland, who had no expectations coming into this season in a very weird AL Central division where it was the Twins and then the White Sox and then back to the Twins and then Cleveland popped in there. Just a bunch of teams rotating for that crown. And Cleveland, they've ascended to the top. Winning about about 23 of their last about 30 games in the regular. They've had an amazing September, and I feel like they have the most momentum carrying themselves into the postseason. And this Cleveland Guardians team, I like on all forms. I mean, they have a pretty dominant rotation. Obviously, Bieber has had his struggles this year, but he's still a Cy Young Award winner. Tristan McKenzie has proven that he can pitch well. Cal Quantrill, he can pitch well. And Cleveland Guardians have one of the best bullpens as well. Emmanuel Clase, definitely some big names in that pen. And then offensively, they have Andres Jimenez, who has stepped up really well. J. Ram, Jose Ramirez, AL MVP candidate almost every year. He finishes top 3 in voting in the AL every year. And, Naylor has stepped up. And a bunch of guys for that Cleveland Guardians team has kind of put them in this position to where they are hosting the Tampa Bay Rays in the first round of the wild card. So this one's more intriguing because I just don't know which Rays team we're going to get in the postseason. And you could say the same thing about the Guardians. You don't know which Guardians team you're going to get in the postseason. The Guardians, obviously, are playing well right now, but they haven't been playing the best competition as of recently. Obviously, playing mostly division opponents, and the division is not that great anyways. And then you have the Rays, who have been playing pretty much everyone in their division, and you see the Rays division, AL East, is one of the best divisions, if not, you can argue, the best division in baseball. And it just comes to show which team are we going to get in the postseason. I like Cleveland just because of what they're doing right now. That pitching staff is great. I feel like if you put those three pitchers, and we just saw that series happen. Literally not even a couple weeks ago, Cleveland hosting Tampa Bay, and so it's just a rematch of that series a couple weeks ago. And Tampa Bay, I believe, either lost 2 out of 3 or got swept by the Cleveland Guardians. So it just comes to show you that this Guardians team is not messing around. We'll see how it is in the postseason. I have the Guardians winning in 3. I think Tampa Bay will make it the first one just because McClanahan's probably going to be on the mound, and McClanahan is always going to be shoving. And then I think Cleveland just wins back-to-back to force Game 3, and then moving on to play the Yankees in the ALDS.
Yeah, I agree with you. I have Cleveland as well. It's kind of interesting. Kyle Quantrill has not lost a home game since, I want to say it was 2019, 3 years since he's on the Padres. So that's an insane streak. So then I think he would be the Game 3 starter if it went Game 3. And obviously they're hosting. So yeah, I could see it going 3, but I agree that Cleveland wins this series. So that's the AL. So now we'll go over to the NL wild card. We'll start, I guess, with the other 4-5 matchup. The Mets hosting the Padres. Mets had the lead in the NL East pretty much the entire season, and then the Braves came storming back, the second half of the year, late in the year, and then swept the Mets in that second to last series of the regular season to pretty much secure the NL East title. They need to win one more in this Marlins trip, which they did yesterday, to clinch the NL East championships. Now we have the Mets and DeGrom and Scherzer hosting the Padres and Juan Soto. Obviously, the Padres made the blockbuster deal trade deadline for Juan Soto, and there was times where it looked like they might be in danger of not even making the playoffs at all, but they ended up making it, and they will be heading to Queens to face the Mets in the best-of-3 series. A lot of star talent, star power on both sides of the ball, pitching and hitting wise. Korea, what's your expectations and breakdown for this series? That should be one of the more exciting ones, I think, for the wild card weekend.
Yeah, if you're gonna tune into any of this postseason baseball, I think this is the series you got to tune into, because the Padres, obviously, they've had their ups and downs throughout the second half of the season. Obviously, after the blockbuster trade for Juan Soto and Josh Bell, they also got Josh Hader. They also got Brandon Drury. So the Padres were definitely in win now. We are making the postseason mode. And luckily enough, they did make the postseason. But, at the same time, this Padres team has, not really performed well as of late, losing, some series to the Dodgers and, not really being the dominant Padres that a lot of people expected them to be the second half of the season. But they still have one of the best pitching rotations in baseball. I mean, if you want a 3-game series, you have Yu Darvish, who's had a very great bounce back season. Honestly, could be comeback player of the year if there was an award for that for the NL. Just seeing how dominant he is this year. And then Joe Musgrove, he's definitely going to be shoving as well. I feel like obviously the Mets are going to go with Scherzer and DeGrom, but I just don't know how the Mets offense will do against the Mets, the Padres rotation, and then vice versa with the Padres. Obviously, if you look at it on paper, the Mets are obviously the better team, but the Mets just choked that 10-game lead in the NL East, as you said, to the Atlanta Braves, and the Mets literally went from being a ALCS favorite to, are they going to get out of the first round? I mean, it's honestly a true question. The Padres are definitely going to be coming to play. A lot of people are expecting the Mets to win, but I think the series is going to go to 3, and I have the Mets just scratching out of this. I don't think the Mets are going to be as dominant as a lot of people think they are. I think the Padres are definitely going to give them a run for their money. I feel like the Padres will win Game 2. The Mets win Game 1, and then closing out Game 3. I feel like the Mets will probably have Chris Bass on the mound, and the Mets will win Game 3 in that deciding game. I just don't think this Mets team is really, in it right now to win it. I mean, definitely a contending team, but losing out of that division, that was big for them, and I feel like the path gets so much harder for them because they went from only having to play the potentially either the Cardinals or Phillies, and then the Dodgers, to facing the Dodgers in the next round if they beat the Padres, who both teams have great offenses and very good pitching rotations. So this got a lot harder for the Mets, but I feel like they'll definitely scratch it out for the win and then set up a huge NLDS between the Mets and Dodgers, which will definitely have some people tune into that.
Yeah, I mean, the Mets are, obviously the favorite as expected, but I'm kind of leaning towards taking the Padres on the upset here. DeGrom, his last 4 starts, he's given up at least 3 runs, which is not the DeGrom we're used to. And he left his last start due to a blister injury. He's still expected to be fine to pitch in Game 1 on Friday, but he's not been the same. And 3 of those were against the A's, Pirates, and Cubs. So not the most prolific offenses. But, I mean, this is playoff baseball, so we'll see if he can kind of get back on track. I guess I assume he's going Game 1, but I'm not sure. Maybe they have Scherzer go Game 1 and him go Game 2. I'm not exactly sure who will go where. But, yeah, I mean, the Padres pitching has kind of been up and down, but you mentioned Darvish has bounced back overall this season. Blake Snell has kind of been up and down. But, when he's at his best, he's really solid. And then Juan Soto is kind of – I think he's going to step up for the Padres in the playoffs. It hasn't been the greatest. I mean, even since the Padres traded for him, I don't know the exact numbers, but he has not been, what they traded for him. And then Bell, Drury, this whole team for the most part has kind of been disappointed compared to expectations when they made the trade. But this is their time, and I think either way, like even if the Padres win, it would set up, Padres Dodgers, which should be electric, in the NLDS, or Mets Dodgers would be fun to watch. I think no matter who wins, this would be a fun series to watch against the Dodgers in the next round. And then we'll go to the final wildcard series between the Cardinals and the Phillies. Once the Mariners clinched their playoff spot, the Phillies became the longest drought in MLB for playoffs, and then they clinched their drought. So the 2 longest droughts in MLB entering this year both ended their droughts this year. And so now I believe it's the Angels and Tigers are tied for the longest drought, I believe. So we had the Phillies sneak in, which eliminated the Brewers from the playoffs. What's your expectation for this Phillies-Cardinals series?
Yeah, in this series, this is if you want to watch a series that, would have been highlighted in 2011, this is a great series. 2011, this is a great 2011 series. But, the 2022, and, it's great to see, this Cardinals team, that, was kind of going on the last ride with Albert Pujols and Yadier Molina, Adam Wainwright, those 3 definitely on the last ride, but the rides continue into the playoffs, and they have home field advantage. So definitely definitely big for this Cardinals team. And then they also have Arenado, who's been playing great, Paul Goldschmidt, who's an MVP candidate in the National League. This Cardinals team, definitely doesn't have the big name stars that the Dodgers or the Mets or the Padres have, but the Cardinals just win games. And I simply put it, that's all they do. That they win games. They have a 90-win season for this Cardinals team. I feel like the hype is there, and it's reason because of how well Paul Goldschmidt has been playing. And if he can continue that into the postseason, we'll see how that goes. And then obviously the trade, if you remember, for Jordan Montgomery back around the trade deadline with the Yankees, that's proven to be one of the biggest success stories right now. Montgomery having a good second half of the season with St. Louis, leading them to a playoff charge. And then for the Phillies, you mentioned it. They were the longest playoff drought for about 3 days until they finally clinched the playoff spot, beating the Astros, I believe on Monday to clinch. And now they're setting themselves up for a first-round matchup against the Phillies. Against the Cardinals, excuse me. And, I feel like the starting rotation will definitely give the Cardinals some trouble, but they need stellar performances to win this series. I feel like Aaron Nola, his performance on Monday was just incredible. He had I think a no heading into the eighth, or I believe a perfect game heading into the eighth until that one hit. I forgot who it was. Probably some nobody on the Astros because they already won the division and everything. Yeah, I feel like the Phillies. I definitely were going to give the Cardinals some, but they got to bring all they can give if they want to beat St. Louis on the road in 3 games. I have the Cardinals winning in 2. I just feel like this Cardinals team, will just outmuscle them. And, the Phillies bullpen has never been the strongest thing for them this season. And, with all the bats Philly has, obviously Kyle Schwarber, Bryce Harper, and, the list goes on and on for how, many bats are in there. Obviously, Kyle Schwarber having a career year, almost 50 home runs this year. I just don't think they'll match up well with the Cardinals team that, has great pitching. And then Arenado and Goldschmidt, the 2 NL West guys coming to the NL Central, kind of leading the charge offensively, I feel like is going to be the biggest factor as to why this Cardinals team is going to move on and play the Braves in an interesting NLDS, I believe.
No, yeah, I'm with you. I mean, I can see the Phillies potentially sneaking out 1. Maybe if Nola has one of his vintage, Cy Young performances, maybe they take game 1. But yeah, I think the Cardinals are going to be too strong, in the best of 3, and they're going to move on to face Atlanta. So that wrapped up the wild card series. Was there anything else you want to talk about the MLB playoffs?
Not really. I mean, we'll get started with that on Friday. Obviously, first game starts at 9 o'clock our time, 12 o'clock Eastern Standard Time with the Rays and Guardians. Game 1 is on Friday, and then it's followed by Philly and going to the Cardinals, then obviously Seattle and Toronto, and then the biggest matchup, the Padres and the Mets in the first round. That'll pretty much highlight the weekend, but also, it's going to be pretty hectic now, just scheduling wise with how much is going on. Obviously, NBA is coming back. College basketball starts in a month. College football, we're almost at the halfway point of the regular season. NFL, we're getting past, week 5 now, and it's, kind of crazy how fast that season's going too. So we're going to be doing a lot more content now. Life gets in the way sometimes, but we're back, and, we came back pretty much at the perfect time. Who would have thought, the postseason starts on Friday, and, just all these sports just coming our way. It's great to see, but other than that, I have nothing else to say, Ari.
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly when our next one will be. Maybe we'll go live tomorrow and preview Week 5 in the NFL. But we'll keep you all updated as to what our scheduling will be as we get into probably the busiest season of sports. We didn't even mention college football and college basketball earlier with the 4 major sports going on. So a lot going on. We'll have content covering or videos covering all those sports. But that'll do it for this episode. Thank you all for tuning in, and we will catch you all on the next episode.